Hello, everyone. Let's switch over to me. Hello. Welcome. I just screwed up my entire intro, didn't I? I have got so many tabs open. Holy crap. Eric Watson here, freelance writer, player of games, writer of words, recorder of videos, and tabletop role-playing aficionado. Welcome to my weekly behind-the-scenes, DM-only live stream, Crafting Annihilation, in which I will build, write, and prepare for our next session of Tomb of Annihilation. If you are playing characters named Mannix, Kales, Gillian, Georgiano, or Theron, turn back now. I repeat, this is not meant for you. This is like Ed Harris in Westworld. The maze is not meant for you. This is super duper spoilery. For the rest of you, welcome. We do stream our Tomb of Annihilation sessions live on YouTube every Friday evening. You can catch up on previous episodes on my YouTube page, as well as read weekly session write-ups at roguewatson.com. If you'd like to support my channel, go to patreon.com/roguewatson. Personal shout-outs to my current patrons, my first patrons, Andrew and Brian, both at the platinum level. You can see a little shout-out sticker on our intro page. Thank you so much for your support. First patrons were platinum level. That's amazing. Thank you. For our campaign, we use Roll20.net, and for streaming, I use Open Broadcaster software with Streamlabs. So this is going to be a very off-the-cuff, non-scripted. I mean, not that a lot of my stuff is scripted. That intro obviously is, but I'm just going to kind of go through my thought process for building the session for the week. I'm going to do planning. There might be some writing. There might be pulling things off the internet for Roll20. There might be making tokens or character sheets. There might just be talking, and I definitely encourage anyone in the chat. I know it's kind of a weird time. We're like Thursday mid-morning, so I don't expect it to be too popular compared to our evening show. But this would be probably the best time to actively be involved in the development. I'm not necessarily soliciting, active story advice or anything like that, but I do want to be, I'd try to be active in the chat as much as I can, and this would be the best opportunity for something like that, which would be kind of a cool thing to talk about, especially while I'm working through it. So the most interesting thing right here, permanent character this time around. Yeah, character death. I am very torn on it. That's probably something I should have talked about in our session 0, come to think of it. I think I meant to mention that. It's not something that we've ever done. I kind of feel, there's different ways of running Dungeons and Dragons, and I feel like in the olden days, or at least, and maybe this is an age thing, maybe this appeals more to younger D&D players who maybe like to play a lot of different characters and see the characters die and just immediately roll a new one. But I feel like, and especially when you have like Acquisitions Inc., who play like the same characters for 10 years or something, that player death isn't really a thing. Like, you can have somebody technically fall as part of the story, and I think Dice Camera Action did this in a really cool way, where they had a character. I guess I shouldn't spoil anything for people that haven't watched. My wife is a huge fan of Dice Camera Action. But they handle player death in an interesting way there, where like they actually became like a different race. I think it was like a Warforged for a while, and it kind of built into the story, which that appeals to me more than necessarily just writing that character off and then having to introduce a new one. That being said, Tomb of Annihilation I think does have some ways of introducing new characters, and I've talked to different people that have played through Tomb of Annihilation and how they've handled character death. And, like a lot of things, I think it's just going to come down to being open with your players and talking with them and seeing how they feel about it, which is something that I should probably go over. I should have done that in the session 0. The weird thing is, we can talk about it early on, and I don't see any player death happening until the later stages of the game, the Tomb of Annihilation. Like, it's called Tomb of Annihilation for a reason. It's a death trap dungeon, and that is not something that my players have any real experience with. In fact, I feel like a lot of official D&D 5th edition modules have had very little in the way of traps, especially deadly traps. It just tends to be kind of room full of monsters and maybe some interesting scenarios. But in terms of just straight up like almost adventure game style puzzles and like, the kind of traps you would see in like the Saw movies, like that kind of thing, not a whole lot of that. But Tomb of Annihilation has a lot of that. So it'll be interesting to see how I handle that. The truth is, I don't know right now, and I haven't thought a whole lot about it compared to other things because I don't think it would happen until they actually reach the tomb, and I think it's going to be, like a year before we get there. So it'll be a while. That's something I should probably bring up with the players though, in terms of how they're going to handle it. Yeah, I know somebody mentioned in the chat on session 0 about meat grinder mode. Obviously not doing that because I just don't see. You want there to be consequences for sure. One of the consequences that we have as a house rule, which is in the Dungeon Master's Guide, is the lingering injuries, which we do play with. So if somebody just goes down in combat, like they reach 0 or less hit points to where they're rolling death saves, then they have to roll a Constitution saving throw. I believe it's a DC 15. And if they fail, then they roll a D10, and that determines what kind of lingering injury they have, which is kind of like, I think the Fallout games did this, where you could have like a crippled limb, and that kind of was a penalty to some stats. Or, it was a whole bunch, it was like a concussion, and they were all just kind of it was like a permanent negative trait, but you could get it healed. It was either a really high medicine check, or you had to go into like town for a healer, which, Chult is very bereft of towns with healers, so that could be quite interesting. It happened quite a bit in Storm King's Thunder. Tim famously broke his leg several times, I think. So that's something that we do have as a consequence. The other consequence I thought about for to make death more meaningful is the fact that the players will have a number of NPC allies with them for various parts of the game, and they are very expendable. So if one of them falls, that could be a way of raising the stakes of the adventure, instead of making the players themselves die. I mean, they could still be threatened, they can still fall to 0 hit points, but you could straight up like kill off, or at least have somebody fall to 0, and they have to figure out how to revive them. One of their like good allies, which in the early levels, I think most of the NPCs are going to be probably stronger than the PCs because the level PCs are garbage. But once they get to like level 2 and 3, I think it'll be about the same. And then especially once they reach level 4 and 5, then those NPC allies will start really like, because they're not getting levels, so they're going to start getting more and more in danger and in trouble. I don't want to make it like an escort mission where the players feel like they, it's a burden to protect them, but I want to make it more of a cool story thing. Like, oh shit, so-and-so is getting attacked, I gotta go save them. And I think that could be pretty interesting. And I haven't really played it around with that too much in previous adventures in terms of NPC allies joining the party. It was very, very briefly in, I think Chris had more of that in Storm King's Thunder with the dragon. Was obviously a big one. He had a fucking dragon to play with that he could have with us, and a frost giant. So he had like giant monster characters, which that was another interesting balance issue. We talked about that in the epilogue and recap. The fact that the PCs got these gigantic, powerful characters, and especially in the final battle, and it ended up being a weird thing where it's like, oh, we're just kind of there and letting all these giant monsters actually fight each other. Question, are you going to direct a guide for them or let it be all up to them? So the guides are interesting. I guess I should be using my visual aid here. I have mixed feelings about the guides. I really like the concept of a guide in terms of that is a very obvious way of inserting a NPC into the party, and you have to be careful there. You don't want to create a scenario where the DM is just playing a PC, where you're like, oh, I get to adventure with the party and I get to be a badass with them. You don't necessarily want to do that. You always want to play second fiddle to the players. I do really like that there's a large variety. There's some cool guides in there, and I think it makes sense thematically and story-wise that you get to this jungle and you'd want to look for a guide. I have story ideas for some of them, however. Notably, let's see, where are the guides? I can actually use this as a visual aid, so I'm not just sitting here talking the whole time. I believe it's Port 9 Zaru, maybe player handouts. There we go, there's some guides. Okay, so let's just go through. These are all the guides included in Tomb of Annihilation. So the idea is the players show up in Port 9 Zaru, which I'm going to get to that in a second, but since you asked about guides. Azaka, I love. I think she's a complete badass. The fact that she is a secret were-tiger is fucking amazing. It also makes her way stronger than the PCs. Way stronger than the PCs. But she hides her lycanthropy, which is very interesting and can be a cool twist. I see her as a very proud a woman, like a kind of a Okoye from Black Panther. Just a complete badass warrior. And she has a cool quest associated with it. And I think that's the important thing, is you associate most of these guides with a side quest, essentially, and they provide a way to go to that area. And I think I think my players would take that bait if I mention the fact that like this guide has this quest, this guide has this quest. The weird thing is like, okay, well, do we just take this guide, go to that area, go back and take the other guide and go to the next area? That I don't know, or they just stock up on guides, because a lot of these guides will waive their cost if you do their side quest. So there might be an interesting thing there. It's like, well, we'll take Azaka, we'll take, these different people and just go do all your quests together. So that's going to be, yes, Alita, I'm going to get to that in a second. So Azaka I really like. I'm going to try to push her as a guide. I think she's a fun character. And obviously, I think Firefinger is a neat area, and she would obviously point them to Firefinger. And she's one of those that can waive the fee. So I think almost the adventure in general is like pointing you towards using Azaka. I think she's pretty cool. Eku is interesting. She is a Coatl in disguise, which is fascinating. Coatls are like these winged serpent, kind of almost, I'm not quite sure, like godlike creature. They seem to be like lawful good in general, almost mystical in a way. And she's taken the guise of just this kind of middle-aged Chultan woman. She does not waive her fee, I believe, at all. She does pay money, so the players really want to use her. And it just seems, thematically, that's kind of similar to Azaka, though. It's like you are actually a very powerful creature in the guise of just a normal person. So it's kind of a repeat there, but I think a Coatl is even stronger than a Wurtai. I haven't actually looked up the stats of what a Coatl is. I suppose I could look that up. But she doesn't waive her fee, and her quest is to go to Mabala, which is probably one of the, I was going to say worst, maybe not worst, but the least fleshed out area in the entire adventure, to where it would require a lot. There's no map for it whatsoever. The only main thing there is a hag that has the ability to technically raise players as zombies, which is one of those ways you can bring a player back, although that's very bizarre. And the fact that most players, when they find out she's a hag that killed this village, will kill her. I think there's cool story stuff you can do there, and the problem is Mbala is a giant beacon on the fucking player map, because it's like the only thing they see is this giant like mile-high plateau. So I feel like players would go there, and this is kind of a way to lead them there. I don't know if I would even introduce Eku, to be honest. I would probably have her, if I wanted to introduce her, have her out and about with maybe another adventuring crew and use her later, but I don't really see necessarily using her. I don't think the players would necessarily use her either, because she costs money as well as a 30-day payment up front. So that's kind of almost the opposite of Azaka, where it's designed to be like, oh, she's pretty tough, and she seems just like a normal person, so I don't know. So I'm not sure if I would actually introduce Eku yet. Ferul and Gondolu are the just straight-up humorous guides. They're down and out, kind of charlatans and con men almost, halfling and a human. They have a pet flatulent triceratops, which is amazing. I am going to use them for the dinosaur races, which I have planned a really cool dinosaur racing system, which I have borrowed elements of, one of the DM's Guild supplements. Crap, I forgot the name of it. The one written by the guy who does the Power Score website. God, I forgot. I wanted to name drop him too, but I didn't lift his exactly. But he had a good system where the dinosaur races are played in rounds, and you keep everyone within the same round no matter what their actual speeds are, and then I'm going to have events happen at each round. So I'll go over that probably in a future session, because my players are not going to make it to Port Nyanzaru in this session yet. But I'll use them for that, and I guess I could use them for guides. They do say they're able to reduce their rate for equal shares of treasure found. Like I said, in the dinosaur races, it'll be an organic way for them to join forces. I could see them as being fun because they're just basically shitty, like almost the stats of the commoner. But they do come with a triceratops, which could be kind of funny. So I kind of want my players to use them. I could see them as being easy fodder to get killed. Hugh Hackenstone. I put Hugh Hackenstone in one of my players' backstories. So one thing I'm going to do, and this is going to be a big part of Session 1, is all of my player characters are going to have a personal quest, and I'm going to start the session with a prologue. It's going to be a kind of a backstory for each character that happened. And this is, if you watch the Chris's job with Storm King's Thunder, he did this first, and this is the idea I got from it, is he had this little like event that somehow tied in every player character into either a giant tribe or like an important NPC. And my goal is to have every player have their own backstory and their own personal quest, as if you were playing an RPG in which every like party member had their own personal quest, like a Mass Effect or something, where they all had their own personal quest that you could then do separate from the main story. That of course all happened to take place and complete in Chult. And for Hugh, it's Reese's character is playing Theron, the dwarf. He's going to be a childhood friend of Hugh Hackenstone, and Hugh's backstory is that years ago, Hugh's backstory is, I think he was years ago. I guess I could open this. He went to Wormheart Mine, and that kind of grazed me out, doesn't it? And lost the entire expedition to the dragon. There's a young red dragon down there in the Wormheart Mine, and he had to flee, and he's working as a guide. And his quest is that he wants players to go to Wormheart Mine, although I don't think he waives his fee. No, he's charged 5 gold a day and expect 30-day upfront. So, and I believe he's a gladiator, maybe stat. So or barbarian, whatever the NPC that. So he's pretty powerful. But I'm gonna straight up have him know Theron, and he asked Theron to join that expedition. Theron said, "No, I'm not doing that. I'm gonna go live in the seclusion in the woods and do my thing." And then Hugh went. Backstory is that Hugh went on that expedition. Everyone got killed. He lost his arm, got his arm bitten off by the dragon, which I love. One-armed dwarf gladiator, super scarred. And then he gives the note to Theron saying, "I've lost everything, but I found something. Come to Chult. Help me, you bastard." And that's going to be Theron. And the personal quest for each player is motivation for them to go to Chult. And then while they're like on the boat, I'm going to actually unleash the main quest on them. So Hugh will be part of it. So Hugh will join, and I'm not even sure I will use this guide handout because maybe as a show to like the fact that he was working as a guide. But yeah, I'm going to use Hugh, and obviously I expect the players to just straight up pick him up because he's going to join their forces. Hugh Hackenstone as Theron's best friend in the jungle. So they will definitely use Hugh and really not have to pay him money as long as they agree to do his quest. And the weird thing is, Wormheart Mine is fucking far. We can switch to the let's go to the DM map of Chult, please. Hopefully my players are not watching this. Super spoilery here. So here's the DM's map of Chult. I am obviously using the official Roll20 module for Tomb of Annihilation. The players will start up here in Port Nyanzaru once they make it to Chult, and the Wormheart Mine is way the fuck down here. That little mine symbol. So the weird thing is, the players could actually jump in there if they have, once they get access to the boat, and I'm going to make the boat accessible through a quest. So the fact that Hugh actually knows where the mine is, and the players will get a quest that they know they'll get the boat, that may actually, I may actually have Hugh just, I don't know if he'll actually join them then, because he may wait until the players can just, because I would imagine the players would want to just wait until they have the boat and then go all the way down that way rather than go through the entire fucking jungle. That'll be interesting. I'll have some weeks to think about that. Hugh does need a helping hand. That's a good joke. There'll be a lot of good jokes at poor Hugh's expense. But the thing that he found, and part of, again, this is going to be Theron's personal quest. And you can see here, I've actually got, in Roll20, I built a little subfolder within the journal called Personal Quest. And each one of these, as I read their backstory to start off the session tomorrow, I'm going to give each player their personal quest, and it's only going to be viewable to them. So the subheading personal quest for each player should just say their one personal quest in there, so only they'll have that information to update and everything. So his will be the flame in the forge right here. And what Hugh found was Hrakhamar, the Dwarven Forge, which is linked to Wormheart Mine. And this is interesting because you know, running Princes of the Apocalypse, I have a lot of experience with interconnected dungeons, because that was like 16 dungeons put together, which confused the shit out of my players. And this one has these two dungeons connected together via, I believe, a like minecart trail. And I really like both dungeons, but just looking at the maps, it made more sense for the players to enter Wormheart Mine, because that's at the top of this cool like mine shaft. I guess I can switch to that map since I'm talking about it. I'm getting way off topic here when I was actually going to do this session, but that's going to be part of what we're doing here. Where is... You know what? I think I archived everything. Alright, because I want to make this more... less, because it just had everything in there. Alright, well, I'll just mention it briefly. So it made more sense for them to enter Wormheart Mine, because then they'd have to go down and probably fight the dragon, and then they would open up the path to Hrakamar, which is this dwarven forge that's been taken over by fire newts. And Hrakamar is the quest of another guide, which is Musharib, which is this albino dwarf. And I believe he is one that waives his fee if you find Hrakamar and get the fire newts out of there and everything. So I'm creating an interesting dilemma here, because Hugh is going to stake a claim to Hrakamar, but these albino dwarves, it's like their home. So I'm hopefully going to create a dramatic situation for Theron and for the party that, who's got ownership of this? Is it first come? Is it the ones who cleared it out? Is it the ones who, used to own it? And then Hugh's backstory is actually like bought the deed to the mine. And so hopefully it'll be an interesting thing. This isn't going to happen for weeks and weeks and weeks, so I've got plenty of time to prep for that. But I did want to mention, since we talked about the guides, that actually ties into both Musharib and Hugh Hagenstone, which I will probably introduce Musharib also, just in terms of, there's somebody else that actually wants this forge, so that could be interesting drama there. River Mask and Flask of Wine kind of seem like Farrell and Gondola, where they're just kind of jokey. Tabaxi seem like fun characters to have. They're not particularly very powerful. I believe they do waive the fee if they take equal shares of whatever treasure, which, as somebody who's played the player, that seems like a big red flag turnoff, frankly. If somebody's going to be not that powerful and they want an equal share of the treasure, like, well, piss off. Probably when I run Roka's side quest for getting players to Fort Beluarian, the reward will be like, hey, I can hook you up with these guides. I have no idea if the players will take the bait or not. I'll kind of make them very slimy and sneaky. We'll see, but I will leave them open. Salida is the most exciting one. As Trevor said, Salida is a Yuan-Ti pureblood in disguise, another guide in disguise, which I love that, because she literally says she can communicate with Raz Nisi through a sending stone, so she is straight up a spy. And that is a really cool concept that I really want to pull off well, and I think could be an amazing twist. My ultimate goal would be for the players to make it all the way to Omu, have Salida with them, and then she just fucking turns on them, and it turns out the last time they camped, she spiked all their meals or something, and then that's how they end up getting captured in the Fane. That would be incredible if that happens. Now, obviously, as a DM, I know that the best laid plans often go awry. So I'm hoping I can use her. But I'm not going to have her in Port Nyanzaru. That's going to be important. The players are going to find her in Oralunga, which I am going to change the shit out of Oralunga, because I do not like just the series of events that happen at Oralunga. I'm going to turn that into a dungeon, essentially. And the players are going to find her, and she is going to immediately act like, oh, you rescued me. Yay. I'll be your guide, because I'm a guide, and this group I was with, they stumbled in here, and it's going to be a totally, the players will rescue her and everything. My only worry is that Chris is just playing a detective who is, designed to fucking snoop out people, and he's probably going to roll insight checks and everything, so I'm kind of worried that he's going to discover the truth about Salida, and then there goes my best laid plans, because I have a feeling that the character he's playing, and that's very thematic for his character, is, not trusting anybody. I think that's literally his quirk, is, suspicious of everyone, so that could be a tricky thing to pull off there. And maybe that'll be part of the interesting thing, is they discover that, she is, but she knows the location of Omu, technically, so they can, have her lead. Maybe that'll be the twist. She can, they've, got her captured, the whole time, and then she can either escape, or she can lead them into a trap, so that could be fun. I'm really hoping to use her in a cool way. So those are the guides. Welcome, Brian, end of the campaign. Curious what other... Yeah. I am, I'm hoping my players actually hit up a lot of these locations, because I really do like a lot of the locations here. As I said, I'm going to change Oralunga into a full dungeon. I don't like that it's just this weird series of events that the players get through it. I'm going to turn into a full... I'm actually going to take the dungeon... shit, what is that called? It's from the DM's Guild also. It is... I think it's like the Viper's Nest. Should have had all this prepped ahead of time, but... see, DM's Guild. I'm opening folders right now. Viper's Pit is what it's called. It is a full... it's a full adventure on the DM's Guild called The Serpent Isle by JVC Perry, which I reviewed one of his adventures on one of my DM's Guild reviews. And it's a really cool adventure that evokes a lot of these same things. It's like a jungle adventure, and that one just feels like a really cool... it's just, I don't know, I didn't like Orlanga as written. I wanted a more like substantial dungeon, because right now like the first half is all hex crawl and the second half is all dungeon, and I wanted to kind of balance out by putting just a few more like traditional dungeons in the game. I'm also adding Dangwaru, the Typhoon Palace from the Turtle package. I'm going to be adding that dungeon in here as well, and that's going to tie into Gillian's backstory, because it's the Temple of Umberlee ship that she was involved in, so that'll be a cool way of tying that in. But yeah, I really hope we go through most of these locations. I think they're really neat for the most part, except for Mumbala. I'll have to work on that one. Orlunga was a challenge for us. Yeah, it was just weird. It's like things happen. At one point you have to like swallow a snake to like go up these stairs. And it's like 3 different things that happen that you have to pass. And it's all like skill checks or just figuring out what you have to do. And I just don't feel like my players would respond to that very well. And I just want a dungeon in there somewhere. So I'm going to turn that into a dungeon. And a dungeon where they meet Salida is the goal. Alright, so Session 1. My biggest problem with Tomb of Annihilation, and I mentioned this in my Roll20 review of Tomb of Annihilation, is how the players get to Chult. As written, the players just get recruited by an adventurer who is dying from the death curse, and she teleports everyone to Port Nyanzaru, and the adventure begins. I think that's really lame. Incredibly lame. So what I'm going to do is start the players off in Baldur's Gate, and they all have a backstory and a prologue that motivates every single one of them to go to Chult for their own reasons, and that's going to be part of their personal quest. And by the way, Mannix, Chris's character, his personal quest is going to be to find Artis Kimber. And no, I don't know how I'm going to use Artis Kimber at all. I just know that I want to use him. And the adventure, as written, literally says, like, here's all the different places the players can find Artis Kimber, even as a random event in the jungle. So the adventure even throws up its hand, and it's like, I don't know, you can use him whenever. He's this godlike adventurer from old Forgotten Realms novels. So I'm going to definitely use him, but I haven't even decided how I'm going to use him yet at this point. So, as I said, I'm going to use... They're going to get on a ship. I'm going to use the Brazen Pegasus, which is a ship from Tomb of Annihilation, captained by a dwarf woman named Captain Ordame Swift and Dark, which I love. And she'll be talking like a little Irish woman. I don't know why. That's the voice I'm going to use. And I'm going to have them journey to Chult via a sea voyage, which I imagine will probably take us... Yes, Zendala is absolutely going to be, and I'm going to get there in a second. Zendala's like Salida, where I really hope I can use her in some cool ways. And I think it's going to take a full 2 sessions to get to Chult. My plan is all the players get on the ship, and the first... Okay, I'm using Undrul Silvertusk, which, God, I don't know if I can even find... where would she be located in here? Is it side quests on Port Nyanzaru? Side quests. Okay, so this side quest right here, which this is nice that these are planted here as like just things the player can do in Port Nyanzaru, because I actually ended up taking a lot of these and either expanding on them or using them in different ways. In fact, probably half of these I'm going to end up using at least. But I'm going to use the side quest Escort a Priest to Camp Vengeance, which is Undrul Silvertusk, a lawful good female half-orc priest of Torm, is a representative of the Order of the Gauntlet and newly arrived in Port Nyanzaru. So, her backstory is already she's part of the Order of the Gauntlet and she's arriving in Port Nyanzaru. So what I'm doing is having her on the ship, on the Brazen Pegasus, at Baldur's Gate. So the Order of the Gauntlet is recruiting people to reinforce the camp in Schult, and she's the first one to arrive. Nobody else arrives. Then the players show up. And because they all want to go to Schult, and the Brazen Pegasus is the only ship going there. The Order of the Gauntlet has prepaid passage for all these people. So Captain Ordermay is like, are you part of the Order of the Gauntlet? You're the Order of the Fist or whatever? And hopefully my players are like, yeah, sure. Or even if they're not, they're like, we need to go to Schult though. And Captain Ordermay's attitude is going to be like, well, I need to ship off, and everybody paid for it, so come aboard. You're in. So the players kind of get roped into this quest of meeting Undril and escorting, if they want, hopefully, escorting her to Camp Vengeance. Now, this one says Camp Vengeance. What I'm going to do is have her mention Camp Righteous, which is actually the first camp, which is destroyed. It was overrun by, I don't know if it was exactly undead or, yeah, I think it was undead because they're right there on the border, you can see. But I'm going to have it be that nobody knows Camp Righteous is destroyed. Like the last message came through that they just need reinforcements. So when the players go there with Undril, they show up to Camp Righteous and it's like a horror scene. They're like, oh shit, this place has been ransacked and destroyed, and and then they'll find a note that says that the camp moved. They finally had to like give up this area and move down to Camp Righteous. So that'll be so automatically they'll get one of the first quests they'll get is to go to Camp Righteous down the river Soshenstar, and at Camp Righteous they will then be given the seeds to go to Camp Yeliark because there'll be goblins there that attack the players, as well as Camp Vengeance because that's where Undril then needs to go. So that's an interesting case because that's an NPC that will join the party, that will be with them throughout their Schult adventure in the early game, and then in theory be dropped off at Camp Vengeance, which I haven't quite worked out what I want to do with Camp Vengeance. I want to really turn it into a neat, like, almost like a zombie apocalypse scenario. You know, like in, have you ever played the Left 4 Dead games, where you, and it happens a lot in any kind of zombie fiction, where they just have to hold out against a horde of zombies. I think that could be a cool scenario to unleash, especially because it'll be fairly early in the game, and you can really show off, like, oh man, the undead is a big-ass problem here. I don't know if I quite want to use like a zombie T-Rex or anything, but at least have like a horde of undead move in. The players have to help defend it. Basically make Camp Vengeance more interesting because, right, as written, it's just a really simple, like, just series of dialogue chats, and essentially like the camp leader is kind of just a dick, and that's like the whole thing they have to get over. The wizard got the whole camp to turn on and kill Niles Breakbone. Wow. Yeah, I think, certain groups will make that more fun, but I want to introduce a really exciting element. Or maybe have like a, the zombie apocalypse is kind of just at their gates, and then people are in the infirmary, and maybe some of them rise up as zombies. That creates a huge thing. So I want to kind of turn that into a neat, kind of a horror movie thing. And that should be good motivation because Undril will be with them the whole time. They'll meet her at, like I said, on the ship, and she'll be like, oh, nobody else. And I'm just going to roleplay as a super kind, like she just wants to help people. She's answered the call, the summons to reinforce this camp. And the players are hopefully going along with that. Now, the way I'm going to introduce the main quest is that probably on that first night of their journey, once they've already set ship and they're kind of like meeting Undril and all that, Undril is going to get a message from her superiors, which if you've watched our Princes of the Apocalypse campaign, I used the Knights of Samular, which is kind of this paladin order that Kalinar, Chris's old Dragonborn character, fan favorite, was a member of, and then later, by the end of that campaign, kind of rejoined up with, or at least created like a splinter group. And I'm going to have that be like he essentially managed to join up with the Order of the Gauntlet, is our canon. So, by the way, if you don't know, we have like an MCU universe at this point of Forgotten Realms. So things that have happened in other campaigns technically do carry over to future campaigns. So those characters and events exist, and the neat thing here is I'm going to use Kalinar and the Lich that he works for, Renwick, which is also from Princes of the Apocalypse. I'm going to use them as her superiors, and they're going to contact her and tell her that, oh shit, we found the Soulmonger, because it's written in the adventure that the Harpers learn about the Soulmonger from a Lich. So that was like a fucking light bulb for me, in that I have a lich I can use, a friendly lich that I roleplay like an old man. Um, I can use that character to then contact Undril, and then they're gonna be like, okay, Undril, like, we found, and there's gonna be this whole, I've written this neat kind of hopefully neat cutscene where a Serac actually shows up at the Sacred Stone Monastery where Renwick is camped out, and they've transformed it since into like a Temple of Tyr, which is where the epilogue was for our Princes of the Apocalypse campaign. Asterac's gonna show up and steal Renwick's phylactery, like freeze Kalinor in his tracks, just be a fucking badass, and then disappear. And then that's what's gonna have them do the research, find out the Soulmonger is what uses Lich phylacteries. They're gonna contact Undril and thus the players, and say, okay, we know it's located in Chult, but that's all we know, and you are the only ones we know that are going to Chult because it's such a fucking remote place. We need you to take on this quest. And that's going to be the main quest hooks. They're already going to be there, and I'm hoping that that works really well. Hello, Edward, DMing SKT right now for my party of 6. Using your last game as a source of inspiration. Nice! Excellent. I'm glad you're enjoying the stream. I am excited to be a DM again. Yes, I've got lots of ideas. I've enjoyed the time off. I really love being a player. It's really, it is a super blessing to be able to go back and forth with that with Chris. That was a lot of fun, but I am very much ready to be a player again, and thankfully I've had a lot of prep time with Tomb of Annihilation. I mean, it's been out for a year now, so but interestingly enough, I haven't had a lot of active prep work because a lot of the stuff that I want to do, which is incorporating the players into it, I didn't know until I knew who the players were going to be. And obviously with session 0, we already had what our players were. We just had to build them the actual character sheet. So I've known for maybe a month at most. So that's been like the most active development. But they will get that main quest while they are journeying to Chult. The reason they know about that, the Soulmonger and Chult, is because of the Company of the Yellow Banner, which is an adventuring party, which apparently was one of the designers, the artists, forgot the name. It was like his D&D group. He just like inserted that into this adventure, which I think is really neat. And this whole party met their grisly fates in the Tomb of Annihilation, which is a neat thing because you see like various dead bodies of adventurers, and some of them have some cool shit on them. What I want to do is expand that. So the main quest will tell them to go to Wakanga, which is I was going to say Wakanda, Wakanga Otumu, to follow up on the Company of the Yellow Banner, because Kalinor knows from his Harper contact, which is Talus, also from Princes of the Apocalypse, about this Company of the Yellow Banner that was traveling in Chult for another mission, and had made it to this lost city and seen this vision of a Serac, which if you go to the Omu section of the, which always a good idea to read the entire adventure even if you're not going to get there for a while. If you go to the Omu section of the book, there is a like cutscene event the players see of a Serac essentially like destroying the city. So I'm going to put it in there that the Company of the Yellow Banner saw that happen, and they reported it back via their sending stone to Wakanga, and Wakanga then passed on the information to the Harpers, and then so when the Order of the Gauntlet asks the Harpers about a Serac, they'll be like, okay, well, this is the only lead that we have, is that we saw this vision that happened in Chult. So that's what they have to go on. I think that would work out pretty well, and the way I'm going to do it is the players will, the first breadcrumb of the main quest will be to go to Wakanga, get a audience with him, which I haven't quite decided if I'm going to gate that. I may actually gate that behind having the players, raise their reputation in Port Nyanzaru first by doing some stuff before they're allowed to see Wakanga, god damn it, Wakanga forever, which I think will work out because I have a lot of things planned for Port Nyanzaru, so I think the players will want to stay in there for a little bit of time. And I'm not going to do the big time limit thing. That was an odd part of the adventure, is they have this ongoing time limit where your benefactor's literally like dying from the death curse, and I'd never want to put a time limit into D&D, especially where they're hex crawling like this. Like, you're just telling your players skip everything and go where you need to go. Fuck that. I want my players to do everything and have a good time and adventure. So there's going to be like one of those video game time limits, like in an open world RPG where it's like, oh, we got to get there because this dragon's attacking this Skyrim city. And you're like, okay, I'll take care of that in 2 months after I do these side quests. And then when you arrive, oh, look, there's the dragon attack. That's that's a conceit that a lot of DMs use, I imagine. But That's probably going to be part of it. I don't know how much I'm gonna, maybe at a certain point the players will get this message that like, oh, by the way, the death curse is now becoming stronger and it's gonna start sapping your energy. I will probably do that at some point, but at least early on, I don't want to put the pressure on too much. But when they go to Wakanga, fuck, they are going to get the sending stone that the Company of the Yellow Banner was using, and maybe I'll have it be like damaged or something to where I want to have this process of the players can like roll an investigation check or an arcana check and actually get. And I've got here actual visual aid. This is just me talking most of the time, but where did I put that? There we go. I have its own subheading right here called the Company of the Yellow Banner, and I actually made a bunch of journal entries because in the rules as written, they only find one journal entry when they make it to Omu, which I'm gonna have be the last journal entry, and it's basically them saying we think we found, the Tomb of Annihilation and we found where we need to go. So what I did is expand it and have it literally have their entire adventure from when they land in Schult, from when they give that final mission. I'm gonna have the players like maybe like once a day be able to roll a check to try and, because it's the sending stone's damaged or some bullshit, and they can then get this message. And I think that'd just be a neat thing to be able to track this other party's progress and also kind of tease where Omu is without spoiling it too much. And basically each one, like the first one is they land in Kitcher's Inlet. They talk about Port Castellar, I think is how it's pronounced. The next one is they talk about the Laughing Monkeys and Ataz Muhaha. The next one they do Kir Sabal. They skip Nangalore. They basically go down the river Olong. They make it to Lake Luau. They go straight west from there. And that's pretty much all I say is they go west and then they get lost like anywhere in this area, and then they make it to Omu and see a Serac and all that. So that's what all these journal entries you can see here. I actually like typed them out on this kind of parchment thing that I just pulled from Google Images. But I'm thinking that'll be kind of a neat thing, and not necessarily necessary to complete the main quest, but just kind of add some flavor and then add some more connection. I mentioned that so and so almost got eaten by a crocodile in the river today. Kind of add a little bit of connection to these characters. It's always nice when you create something with history in place. I think that really makes the world come alive. So with that, when the players discover the bodies in the tomb, and that's going to be a quest also. Where did I put that? Discover the fate of the Company of the Yellow Banner right here. So that'll be kind of a just a little side quest here. The players will be able to actually find all the bodies in the Tomb of Annihilation. So that would give a nice bit of context there, hopefully. All of this, obviously, hopefully. Yeah. Let's see. For the rest, living these ideas. Didn't figure out about a Serac to my Blood Hunter. Puzzled it out right before I entered the vein. Yeah, one of the problems that D&D has is a villain problem. And part of that is because you always have the lens of the players. Everything happens from the player perspective. And if you think about the way that other media is done, other storytelling media, books, movies, you have, those scenes where you go to the villain's lair and you see them doing their evil things. I just watched Wonder Woman last night as a rewatch. I do live tweeting on my Twitter account. And it does, and I was thinking about this because it does a number of scenes where it just cuts to Ludendorff and the Dr. Poison lady. There's like 3 or 4 of those scenes where there's no heroes there. It's just coming into what they're doing, and it makes, it's always establishing them as doing something really evil and powerful, and you're like, oh man. And that's something you don't get in D&D, so you miss a lot of that villain stuff unless you really do this ham-handed, like the villain appears in a puff of smoke and taunts you, which I think does happen in The Curse of Strahd. That like is a straight-up thing that happens. Strahd just shows up and berates the players and talks to them, which is probably a cool thing to do, but I think what I'm going to do is probably use a bit of literally just like movie-style cutscenes. And that's partly what my prologue is. It's going to be this cutscene that the players are not in at all. It's a Serac attacking Renwick and Kalinar. And then throughout the adventure, what I may do, especially like to kick off that session, would be to just pull it back and show like the hags doing something, or Withers walking through the tomb and resetting something, to where the players really don't know what's going on, but they're just kind of seeing and hearing these things. Maybe they're just getting visions while they sleep. I want to kind of use something to make those villains more powerful, not necessarily having a Serac appear in a poof of smoke and taunt the players, because he's not going to fucking do that. He doesn't care. I will use the hags, however. There was the hags, and that's part of one of the random encounters, that the hags can show up and jack with the players while they sleep, and they make for good like kind of sub villain mini bosses right before the final fight. So I think playing them up as primary antagonists will be very nice as well. So let's see. Talking about more about. We are almost almost an hour in, and I have not even talked about the rest of session 1. Raznisi. Yeah, God, I forgot about Raznisi. I do want to use him more. I think it could be an interesting angle to use him as a third party faction, not necessarily an antagonist, because I mean obviously he has a pissed off history of his own. As a fallen paladin, raised the entire undead army, which is still full of chult, so he's not like certainly a good guy, but it could be interesting if the players decide to align with him because he is dying of the death curse. And he figures out that, like, fucking Acererak is doing this right beneath me, like, players got to stop this. So I could see that being a very good allyship. I do plan on using him in a cutscene in Oralunga. One of the named Yuan Ti I'm going to have be in Oralunga, and when the players enter like the boss room of that dungeon, he'll be talking with like a I'm basically just using projections for a lot of stuff. Talking to a projection of Raznisi, and so the players can be introduced to Raznisi in that way. But I do plan on using them a lot more, and obviously the Fane will be a major part, which hopefully Salida will be part of that. All right, so the rest of Session 1, journeying to Chult. So the players get the main quest, the prologues. I imagine all of this is going to take a lot of time. It's a lot of world building in the initial thing. We already did all of our character creation stuff, but so this will be all like story. The other big event I am going to do, which I'm right now on my Google Doc. By the way, Patreons at the Platinum level will get access to my Google Docs of notes, which is just an insane mess, but it's got everything in there from all my actual written dialogue to all of that stuff. That's just kind of a cool perk that I will offer probably either tomorrow or Saturday. I guess I should always do it on the 1st of the month because that's after everything clears. But just kind of a neat perk I thought would be fun to offer for Patreon supporters is actual access to all of my notes, which right now I'm staring at a 12 pages that's just the journey to Chult, which a lot of that is my like typed out cutscenes, but still that's a lot going on. The main event that I want to have as I scroll down here, so I've got the cutscene on day 1. Let's see, I've literally got it by like day 2 and day 3. Just kind of socializing with the crew. They can talk to Ordame, they can talk to Undril and get basically their quest. As I mentioned, Undril's quest is to go to Camp Righteous, and Ordame's quest is actually from the let's see. I'm using another one of the side quests. It is where's the side quest thing? Things to do. No, it's not things to do. Side quests. Is it explore? It's not explore. Help the Lord's Alliance. It's this one. I am taking that one and putting it, applying it to Captain Ordame. So essentially, Captain Ordame says she's a smuggler. She declined joining the pirate. I'm calling it the Trident, but it's these 3 pirate captains got together and basically formed this like pirate group, this gang. And she declined joining that, just wants to stick to being a smuggler. But she wants to become a legit businesswoman, and essentially like charter trips to Chult, like expeditions, because she knows that route very well, going back and forth. But in order to do that, she needs the location of Oralunga and Nangalore. And I'm hoping this will be a major incentive to explore a good chunk of this map, because the reward that she's going to say is like, I will be your ship while you're in Chult. Like, you will gain access to my ship. You can, I know my way around Chult, so you can, stop by anywhere you want outside of Chult and just instantly. And I believe I've calculated the ship can move, the players move 1 hex a day in the jungle. The ship moves about 12 hexes a day. The ship doesn't have to sleep. So I'm hoping that would be a really good incentive for them to do that. I haven't quite determined. Obviously, some people will know those locations. That'll be partly like the Company of the Yellow Banner thing. Like after a couple days, they'll start, and eventually they'll say like, oh yeah, we actually made it past Nangalore on the River Olong. So that'll be a cool way of finding out where Nangalore is by tracking this Company of the Yellow Banner. Or Oralunga, I may have somebody in Port Irons. I would just tell them like it's west of Mabala, somewhere. But once they find those 2 locations, then they can report back and gain access to the ship. And at that point, I'm assuming we've learned more about the pirates. location, and then they can take the ship and then go to Jahaka Anchorage, and then I'll have the Typhoon Palace over here in Jahaka Bay as well, and that would be an easy way for them to go to Wormheart Mine also. So that'll open up a lot of things, and I'm hoping that will make it for a good quest. And so they can really learn that at any point. I'm kind of leaving it open. I don't want to script too much stuff, but essentially during the journey, I'm assuming at some point they talk to Undril, they'll get that quest, they'll talk to Captain Ordame and get that quest. So before they even make it to Chult, they're going to have a mess of, they already have their personal quest, they have the main quest, which the main quest is basically two parts. It's destroy the Soulmonger and retrieve Renwick's phylactery, which I'm probably not going to make anything more involved than you've beaten the main quest and now you can get the phylactery. And then what's the other one? Oh, and yeah, Ordame and Orlunga Ningalore. So they'll have just a whole mess of quests before they even make it to Port Nyanzaru. Now, on about halfway through the journey, maybe towards the end of the journey, I'm going to have a major event happen at sea. Oh, wait, we got a quest. Your party going out into the jungle once into the whole thing. Oh, we got repeated. That is an excellent question. And I thought about this a lot because, as written, it doesn't make any sense for the players to ever go back to Port Nyanzaru because traveling through the jungle is a pain in the ass, and it's meant to be. It's a dangerous thing to do it. So if they make it like all the way down to the Eldani Basin, like even if they're traveling by canoe, what incentive is there to actually go back to Port Nyanzaru and turn in a lot of these quests? Like there's a quest to turn in Vorn to Wakanga. He's going to give that quest. If they want to give up the Shield Guardian, which that's an interesting. I think I'm going to make the Shield Guardian into like a C-3PO style because I don't want to give my players a really powerful fucking Shield Guardian. So I want to make him like just a super like wuss that doesn't want to fight. It's like the twist. The players think they get this powerful badass Shield Guardian. He's like, oh, hello everyone. I think my solution is to put teleporters scattered throughout Chult. And there is precedent for this. In the adventure, it does state that in the heart of Ubtao is one such teleportation circle, and I believe Wakanga has the other one in his villa. So that's something he is going to mention to the players, is like, I have this teleportation circle, I believe it is tied to other ones in Chult, but I have obviously never had anybody find them. If you find them, you can activate them, and then that will take you back to my villa. So what I'll probably do is scatter them throughout Chult and literally use that as a means for the players to be able to return to the hub town, not unlike every action RPG in existence, or like a Destiny, or whatever else that has, the hub town that you need to fucking return to sell your shit and buy supplies. Like, I appreciate that it's supposed to be this dangerous thing, but Port Nyanzaru is a neat place, but it is the only, like, now occasionally, they could find like a, well, most of the places are actually dangerous, either goblins or Eblis or some kind of hostile creatures. Like, there are little organizations of creatures, I don't even call them villages, but out in the wild they can find. But I do want to have a way for them to teleport back to Port Nyanzaru, yes. I haven't decided where those teleporters will be. I will probably use it as a balancing mechanism. If the players make it to Mabala or Orlunga and they have just a ton of shit and they really need to resupply, then I could just like, oh yeah, you find a teleportation circle in the back. Although, having an Orlunga might be bad because the whole, I don't know if that'd be too easy for, like story-wise, like, oh wait, well now you can just teleport people to Orlunga. Do we really need Captain Ordame to know where it is? So I have to be careful about that. But I do want to have, maybe not even in a location. It could be a teleportation circle in like a random square on the map like they find. That could certainly work as well. So yes, I do want a way for them to go back to Port Nyanzaru for sure. I will just try to balance it at some point. So the other event I'm going to have happen, which I'm going to switch to this map, during their sea voyage, and I didn't want to make it too lengthy because the players are level 1. We're starting at level 1. Level 1 players are garbage pants, just hot fucking garbage. Not quite as bad as older editions with a 2 hit point wizard or whatever that bullshit was that dies to a giant rat. Like, I get the whole RPG is, going from weak to godlike, but it was too weak. 5th edition fixes that a lot, but level 1 is still pretty shitty. And Tomb of Annihilation is oddly one of the few adventures that doesn't have like a starter dungeon or starter bunch of side quests for players to do. A lot of the adventures do have specifically like, here's how you get your players caught up through the bullshit levels until the real adventure starts. That's literally how a lot of the official WotC adventures work. This one doesn't have that at all. This one's just like, oh, they teleport to Chult. Good fucking luck. It's supposed to be hard. The way I've got it balanced is I'll probably, like I said, it'll probably last about 2 sessions, and by the time they get to Port Nyanzaru, they will make level 2. And as I mentioned in my session 0, I'm not awarding experience. I'm doing the milestone method, which means they will level up when I want them to. And they are going to hit level 2 in Port Nyanzaru because fuck level 1. And honestly, between all the things I have planned in Port Nyanzaru, and I'll get to that probably in future Crafting Annihilation sessions because they're not going to get there yet, they may actually get to level 3 before they even leave Port Nyanzaru and step foot in the jungle. I may include Fort Belawarian in level 2, depending on how that works, because ideally they go to Port Nyanzaru, realize, oh, we've got one side quest in Fort Belawarian, let's go up there, then go back to Port Nyanzaru, and then maybe at that point get them to level 3. So I may include Fort Belawarian in level 2, but honestly, by the time they leave Port Nyanzaru, they may already be level 3, which will help alleviate a lot of the more terror. But I don't know, I just don't like the balance, the challenge level of just throwing regular shit at really low level players because it's just weak sauce. Like get them to level 3 where they feel pretty established, and then you throw some challenging shit on there, and then at least they have more options and it doesn't feel horribly unfair. In Storm King's Thunder we were fighting through a bunch of goblins at Nightstone, and it was harrowing, but you're just fighting a bunch of goblins. It's just harrowing because you have like 10 hit points and you can't hit worth shit, and it's bad. Yeah, Cellar of Death is I've heard that's a good one. James Incasasso is an amazing writer. I'm not quite using Cellar of Death because, like I said, I have my own lich I can use. So yeah, let's finally switch. I've tried to switch over how many times now. I really love having the chat here. It's been amazing to answer questions and talk to y'all. But I do want to go over this. Oh, by the way, I do have a Brazen Pegasus map I am using. Here, loading. Still loading. Lord. There we go. Alright, and as you can see, I still need to actually put my player tokens on here, don't I? So if I drag them, will it automatically... No, it doesn't have your hit points or your thing on there. So I need to do that on all the tokens, don't I? This is just busy work. And this is kind of the thing I probably won't do too much of during the actual stream because it's not terribly exciting. You can see here I just type in HP and AC. God, Chris is such a bar. So bad. I hate when Roll20 does that. Okay, there we go. So that token should now work. So the players will be here on the boat. And there shouldn't be any real combat, but I have 2 major events that are going to happen. I believe this map was supplied with the Tomb of Annihilation module as well, so I'm just using this as pretty much every pirate ship map. The first one, so Mannix's backstory, Chris's player, is that he's a noir detective from Baldur's Gate, essentially. The classic, like, the dame walked into the room and had legs for days, that kind of thing. Zendala is going to be the woman that walks into his office and says, I need you to find someone for me. And it's my father, Artist Kimber. And then Mannix finds out there's detective work that Artist was last seen in Chult. So he tells her. And she fucking splits on him. She disappears. And he's like, and he's pretty sure, he asks around, and he's pretty sure that she left on a passage to Chult. So now he really needs to go to Chult to find her, track her down, get his money back, get his money that she owes him, and maybe find Artist as part of it. And what I'm going to do is immediately spring that on my players, who are probably not expecting their personal quest to hit this soon. But Zendala, which I can switch to... where are you, Zendala? I think I actually put you up here in Party NPCs. There you go. There she is. Half-elf sorcerer, a wild magic of the dragon persuasion. You can see she's got the gold dragon scales. So her whole deal is, and it's written in the module like this, is that she... meets the players, I think it just says maybe in Port Nyanzaru, and pretends to be Artist Kimber's daughter, but what she really just wants to do is steal the Ring of Winter, which is the entire Frost Giants are still after, which is a cool thing in Storm King's Thunder, because they actually introduced this in Storm King's Thunder, where the whole reason the Frost Giants attack Bryn Shander is to get the Ring of Winter, and they actually mention Artist Kimber by name and everything. And I believe his son is there, which in our campaign, his son got killed. And Zendala is just straight up bullshitting the players, which again, unfortunately, Chris will probably roll some insight and figure that out. I'm not quite sure, and again, I'm not sure how I'm going to use artists, so I'm not sure what the where my end goal is yet. I haven't planned that far ahead because I don't know how I'm going to use artists. But Zendala, she's got a dragon with her, a pseudo dragon, and the players are going to be on the ship, and one of the events is going to be this dragon coming up from a distance. They're like, oh shit, a dragon's coming, and then they realize, oh, it's a little teeny tiny cat-sized dragon. And this dragon shows up and basically tells them, the dragon can't speak, but it uses like thought and emotion or whatever, that Zendala's in trouble. Like her ship, it turns out her ship went aground in a massive shipwreck, and they have to go and rescue her. And that I'm going to use this map for. Which, again, I still have to put all my players' tokens on there. Man, I've done a bad work of prepping these tokens, but the map is here. I don't know if anybody knows how to get rid of these things. This happens every once in a while in Roll20. I could refresh the page, but that would make me go away for a second. I'm going to leave it for now. And this is a giant, really cool shipwreck map. I think I found on Reddit. I'm not even quite sure, so credit to whoever made it. I'm still debating on how. Maybe you guys can help me with this. I want to introduce it, but the basic concept is I want to do the classic Greek mythology siren song of luring ships into the rocks, and it destroys the ships. And the twist I'm making here is that this already happened to a ship, and the players are essentially have to get on, because the Captain Orme won't go near it when she realizes like there's a huge like mess of rocks and things here. She's like, no way, you guys can take the little rowboats and go, which is what I've got placed here. I'll have to move their tokens on there, which again I'll have to ask them like, how are you going to do this, because I believe these little rowboats can only hold up to 4, so they'll have to decide. There'll be a minimum of 2 to go check it out. And so this already happened, and I have these towers in place, and my original thought process was to put a harpy in each tower, and then once the players get to like this threshold right here, the harpies turn on their songs, and all the players have to roll their saving throws. Which the interesting thing here is that, and I believe this is as written, and maybe somebody can correct me, but if you save against one harpy song, that does not make you immune to another harpy song. It only makes you immune to that harpy song, which may feel a little unbalanced when you have 4 fucking harpies, because you have to make 4 saving throws. It's only like a DC 11, but again, these are level 1 players, and if you have to make 4 saving throws, that may actually be too much for them. And I always worry about balance. Balance is always a concern, even though my players always do better than what I think they do. But again, it's level 1, and I'm putting them in a very, very crazy situation, which is in the water. Harpy songs are going. They're not in immediate danger, except for the fact that there's blood in the water, and there are sharks here, reef sharks, which I think are just CR half songs or something, shark songs, in the water. So that if the players start swimming, because when you fail your saving throw, you have to move towards the harpies. The goal is they would just move to these islands and have to climb up these little towers. I haven't determined how tall these towers are yet either. I'll have to figure that out. Where the harpies are just kind of waiting for them. I'm worried that is a little too much. So then my second thought process was, well, I'll put 2 harpies here, so the players already see them and kind of know what's up. And these harpies will be like fighting Zendala. But then I'm like, do I want to start them in the middle of combat that far away? And then, the tricky thing is I always have in D&D, especially with battle maps, is line of sight. Technically, could the player see this far and determine what's going on? If this were Theater of the Mind, I could say like, well, you can barely make out what's going on, you can't really see. In Roll20, I have to either make a hard and fast rule of can you see this or can't you? Because there's not really a different way to do that. So if it's global illumination, which is turned on right now, then they'll be able to see all the way this far, so they'll be able to see. And maybe I could just hide the tokens and be like, you see some figures over here, you can't quite tell what's going on. I could maybe use some generic, like silhouetted tokens or something, because I don't want to tip my hand too much about the fact that like Zendala's on this ship, for example, although they would have a good idea because Chris's character Mannix would recognize that dragon. The pseudo dragon. So Balance-wise, I'm not sure if I just want to leave the Harpies all there to set up their trap, but if Zendala's there, like, just chilling on the ship, then why wouldn't the Harpies already be there, like, attacking her? I had, at one point, I was going to have Zendala be polymorphed, because she has the polymorph spell, and have her, like, fighting that way, so it just looked like the Harpies were fighting this, like, shark or this beast or, something that she transformed into. So they would be really confused about what's going on, except they do have the pseudo-dragon there, so the pseudo-dragon, Summerwise, would be able to hopefully communicate the fact that, that's, Zendala or something, and obviously Mannix would not know that she was a sorcerer capable of polymorphing, so that could be a cool twist as well. Brian says you could have the Harpies focusing on Zendala, moving towards her rather than combat at the get-go. Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. Make it like a, maybe not have them locked in combat quite yet, but definitely have the players show up like when the Harpies are... what I could do is have the Harpies like clawing at the deck, like there's something in there they're trying to get at. They're doing the, I picture the old, what is it? Stop motion animation, the Harryhausen, Sinbad movies, I can't remember the names of them. Those old like ones from like the 80s, where it was they're older than that actually. It's probably like 60s and 50s. Where they had the cool, like, the Cyclops and the dragon, and have that moment where the Harpies are coming down at the blind guy trying to eat at the meal. So I kind of want to do that for the Harpies. They're like coming in and trying to just fuck with the ship, and they're like stealing category. Rob, I don't remember where I got this map from. I think it was somewhere from Reddit. Oh, there was a I found a really, really good thread. God, I should remember these. Unfortunately, this was a while ago that I prepped this map, but I found I think it was a thread on Reddit somewhere, either D&D or DM Academy, one of those, that just had a plethora of amazing battle maps that, most of them weren't feasible for my campaign. There were a few jungle ones that I'm going to try to use, but this one I looked at and was like immediately inspired, like, oh shit, I am going to use this because my players are going to be on a boat going to Chult. So that was the inspiration. Unfortunately, I don't remember this one. I had prepped a while ago. As I said, I've had Tomb of Annihilation for a year, and I've been able to prep some of the stuff. Even without knowing that Zendala is going to be part of a character's backstory, I still wanted to have this moment here and be that as a cool way of introducing this character, even though she's already part of a backstory. Now, what I do need to do before tomorrow is write up like some dialogue exchanges, because obviously Mannix will want to have some words with Zendala once she is rescued, so I will have to have all that in there. It is incredible. About like, hey, why the fuck did you leave me? Like, you owe me some money and blah, 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 blah. And obviously her thing will be like, I was impatient. Sorry I screwed you over. I mean, I don't want to make her a nice person. She is definitely a very self-absorbed, powerful sorceress who just kind of wanted to use Mannix. But unfortunately, because she's in this situation, she is slightly humbled and willing to, swallow her pride a bit in order to be rescued and join forces with them in getting them to Port Nyanzaru, because obviously she realizes, they're going to Port Nyanzaru, and she's like, look, I will, I'm good for it. You find artists. I can help you in your journey and blah, blah, blah. But she's very powerful. If we go to her character sheet, Jason and the Argonauts, thank you. Fuck, that was the one. Clash of the Titans is a later one. That I think that was like the 80s. That was like the last one that Harryhausen did, which is a great movie. But Jason the Argonauts was the one that I was thinking of. I believe that's literally the one with the harpy scene. That's the one with the cool Hydra, and then the bad guy gets the teeth of the Hydra and then throws the teeth down, turns into skeletons. If you haven't watched those classic old-ass movies, watch them. They are still amazingly watchable today, despite being super, super old. The stop-motion animation is very fun. Zendala is a 9th level spellcaster, so I'm very obviously leery about giving my players a 9th fucking level spellcaster, with has, 4th level? 5th level spell. It's dominate persons, right? Which is why I think it'd be cool to have her polymorphed at some point in the fight, which also means I'm not too concerned about the Harpies themselves in combat, because I do think it'd be nice for Zendala to add them in combat, although she would probably be like exhausted and wounded. I still want it to be a rescue mission, but I do want her to be able to help them in combat. So I'm hoping this fight goes well without fucking over my players too much, because you have to be very careful when you wrest control away from PCs and have them be dominated or controlled or stunned. It just means you can't do anything on your turn, and that's not fun, and you always want to worry about taking away the fun. So Hopefully not everyone gets lured by the Harpy song. I believe in 5th edition, no matter what the save is, you always get to repeat the saving throw, which is literally what I just said about the not fun. That's why it's included in 5th edition, because you don't want to be perma-stunned or locked down or dominated. Like, you always want to have that chance of freeing yourself from a mind control. So I'm hoping that would just make it interesting, because literally, if the players get Harpy songed, they would leap off the boat and start swimming. And then it's like, oh shit, now. And hilariously enough, 2 of my players have swimming speed. The Turtle and the Triton both have swimming speed. So they would actually do pretty well in the water, which may actually make it trickier because they would get farther away if they don't make their saves. I would have the sharks in the water and maybe have, like, I want to try to create a tension without making it too dangerous, because I do know, again, these are level 1 players. One shark bite could be fucking awful. I'm hoping it goes well. My players, the advantage is they would see what's happening here. They would see the harpies up there. They would think maybe that's the only harpies, so my surprise would be that there are maybe like 1 or 2 harpies that do the harpy song, and maybe the other ones don't do the harpy song. They're just too focused on trying to get to Zendala. I think I'm liking that idea of having Zendala maybe below deck or polymorphed, and have her like about to be attacked by the harpies, and then the players show up. They have to make that split decision of like, okay, we got to go and explore this. And figure out what's going on, and then when they get close, then maybe 1 or 2 of the other harpies, which I think I put 4 out here total, which is a lot for level 1 players, but I'm hoping they can do it with Zendala, and they could have Undril with them, the half-orc priests. Like, if they're nice to her and convince her to come along, she's just a helpful person, they could straight up say, come with us. And maybe they want to recruit some of the bandits from the crew, although that would probably be a lot harder to do it. And again, I'm leery about adding too many NPCs, but that could be a possibility. It would help tip the things, help tip the scales in their favor. But I just think it's a neat opportunity to use this scenario. It's a neat way to add Zendala to the party. My ultimate plan, I'm pretty sure at this point, would be after their first night in Port Nyanzaru, Zendala disappears. She splits again on Mannix. Just fucking disappears. I'm going to leave a note this time for Mannix and probably say, like, hey, we'll cover more ground. I appreciate you telling me that he's in Schultz and rescuing me and getting me to Schultz. Maybe leave him some money. That could be, sweetening the deal so that he's not just after her. At least one of them has low wisdom. Yeah, I think. I'd have to actually look at their... I haven't done that. I usually, at some point in the campaign, literally write down what all my players' saves are and be like, okay, what are the things that they're weakest against? But I would have Zendala leave. I don't want to actually have her join the party for the majority of the adventure, because she's so fucking powerful that I would be in danger of taking the spotlight too much away from the players. And I think it'd be interesting if they meet her at some point, and then she, at this point, and then she leaves. Maybe they even see her again, and then they start seeing Artis and meet him, and now they've got these 2 factions. But then when they see Artis is like, I don't have a fucking daughter, and so it becomes this really interesting scenario. Again, I haven't planned any of that yet. That's way in the future. But I am using Zendala. I'm using her in this way. She's going to be an important part of the campaign. I think she'll be a lot of fun. I don't quite have a contingency plan if Mannix rolls like a really good insight check and realizes that she's fucking lying about... well, she's not lying about wanting to find Artis, though, so maybe I can work it that way. I have a lot of secret characters, and I don't want them to be found out. But, you have to reward players for being insightful about that, so that'll be interesting. The other cutscene I have planned, how is Mannix tied to her? Rob, did you just join us? She is the... He's playing the Nora detective, and in his backstory, she's going to be the woman that walks into his office and says, I need you to find a person for me. It's Artis Kimber, my father. And then he determines it's in Schult, that he is in Schult, and then she leaves first, kind of screws him over. So that's how she's worked in the backstory. So he knows her and has a desire to find her. And we'll rescue her here, essentially. But I'll need to write... I've probably decided I'm not going to do a lot of the active writing here, because it's just going to be fucking me typing, and you're not going to watch that. It's me. I'd rather just show you the maps and talk about stuff. So I'm going to have to do that today. And tomorrow is actually type out the dialogue scenes when Mannix asks the pertinent questions. That I have some of that prepared. Yes, that's all right. It is going to be recorded on YouTube for sure. We are over an hour right now. I did want to mention, and honestly at this point, that might be our entire session 1 tomorrow, is the prologues, the cutscenes, meeting with the Brazen Pegasus, getting the main quest from Undril and Kalinar and Renwick, all that happening. That's going to take up a good chunk of time, and then this is going to be one big combat scenario. I am anticipating the fact that all of that will be session 1. Like, probably getting to the end of this and rescuing Zendala will be the end of session 1, honestly. And so I see that the entire... they're not even going to make it the Chult in the first session. And I imagine then the next session, which I'll go over in next week's Crafting Annihilation, will be the next event I have planned on their ocean voyage, which is I have a big cutscene planned with one of the pirates to establish the pirate control of the Chult waters around there, and Captain Ordome's history with that. Kind of just create this neat little Pirates of the Caribbean, and it's meant to be a non-combat scenario because there's gonna be a lot of like NPCs there, and the players are meant to just kind of sit there and be like, oh damn. But I'll go over that more for next time because I meant to do this only for an hour, and I have gone a little longer than that, and I am hungry for lunch. But this was a lot of fun. I'm glad that I am doing this. I'm glad that so many of you decided to join me on a Thursday morning. But I think that is going to do it for this week's session of Crafting Annihilation. So I can start playing my outro music. Again, this is my first session of Crafting Annihilation, so I don't have a good format for it. But if you like my content, do check out patreon.com/RogueWatson and tune in tomorrow for session 1 of Tomb of Annihilation. I'll see everybody then.